All right. Hey, welcome back to this another experimental live read from Graham. I'm Graham at Adult Brain, one of the narrators here. This is going to be, I think we might finish off this book today if I can do it. The last three chapters, they're all fairly small. It's Ragnarok, The Age of Fire and Gravel by Ignatius Donnelly, published in 1883. It's been a fascinating read, really. Part one was The Drift, part two, The Comet, part three, the legends, and now we are in part four, the conclusions, and we're going to read the universal belief of mankind, which is chapter 6. Chapter 7 is the earth struck by comets many times, and then chapter 8, the afterword. I think we can finish it off. This is raw and rough. This is how us humans do it over here. We are not robots, and I will be showing you the edit, the way I edit it here. This is like how the sausage is made, basically. Usually I use full screens, but when I'm doing it live like this, I try and squeeze it up into one full screen here. So it's a little bit different, a little bit difficult. I try to do the same quality control that I normally do, but I probably let more go when I'm doing it live, and I'm a little more particular when I'm just recording it on my own. But here's my recording software and the PDF that I'm going to scroll through, and we will just jump right into it. I'll try not to make too many mistakes. This is going to be a bit of a tougher read. There's some funny pronunciations in here, so I'm just going to do a check here. All right. Let's do it. Chapter 6. The universal belief of mankind. There are some thoughts and opinions which we seem to take by inheritance. We imbibe them with our mother's milk. They are in our blood. They are received insensibly in childhood. We have even seen the folklore of the nations passing through the endless and continuous generation of children, unchanged from the remotest ages. In the same way, there is an untaught but universal feeling which makes all mankind regard comets with fear and trembling, and which unites all races of men in a universal belief that someday the world will be destroyed by fire. There are many things which indicate that a far distant prehistoric race existed in the background of Egyptian, I'm just going to try to keep that record level up there. I think it's right here. Just going to redo that one. Scroll up. There are many things which indicate that a far distant prehistoric race existed in the background of Egyptian and Babylonian development, and that from this people, highly civilized and educated, we have derived the arrangement of the heavens into constellations, and our divisions of time into days, weeks, years, and centuries. I love how back in the 1800s they still thought there was pre-Egyptian and Babylonian high civilization. I mean, I don't know, I guess I just keep thinking that was more of a recent thing. Excuse me. Get all the burping out of the way. I'll try not to burp and cough too much, but it always comes up when you're reading constantly like this. This people stood much nearer the drift age than we do. They understood it better. Their legends and religious beliefs were full of it. The gods carved on Hindu temples or painted on the walls of Assyrian, Peruvian, or American structures, the flying dragons, the winged gods, the winged animals, Gokamats, Rama, Siva, Vishnu, Tetzkatlepoka, were painted in the very colors of the clays which came from the disintegration of the granite, red, white, and blue, the very colors which distinguish the comet. And they are all reminiscences of that great monster. The idols of the pagan world are, in fact, congealed history and will someday be intelligently studied as such. Doubtless, this ancient astronomical zodiac building and constellation constructing race taught the people the true doctrine of comets, taught that the winding serpent, the flying dragon, the destructive winged dog. Let me redo that. Taught that the winding. I can usually redo a sentence after a semicolon. I like these old texts that have a million semicolons. It's like you can start a fresh sentence there. taught that the winding serpent, the flying dragon, the destructive winged I keep saying God, taught that the winding serpent, the flying dragon, the destructive winged dog or wolf or lion, whose sphinx like images now frown upon us from ancient walls and doorways, were really comets, taught how one of them had actually struck the earth, and taught that in the lapse of ages, another of these multitudinous wanderers of space would again encounter our globe and end all things in one universal conflagration. And down through the race, this belief has come, and down through the race, it will go to the consummation of time. We find this day of wrath prefigured in the words of Malachi chapter 4, 5, 1. 1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. 2. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. 3. And ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in that day, and I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts. We find the same great catastrophe foretold in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, 5, 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. 4. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And again, chapter 6, 12. And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. 13. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. 14. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. 15. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. 16. And said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. 17. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Here we seem to have the story of Job over again in this prefiguration of the future. The Ethiopian copy of the apocryphal book of Enoch contains a poem which is prefixed to the body of that work, and which that learned author of Nimrod supposed to be authentic. It certainly dates from a vast antiquity. It is as follows. Enoch, a righteous man who was with God, answered and spoke while his eyes were open, and while he saw a holy vision in the heavens. Upon this account I spoke and conversed with him, who will go forth from his habitation, the Holy Land and Mighty One, the God of the world, who will hereafter tread upon the mountain Sinai, and appear with his hosts, and be manifested in the strength of his power from heaven. All shall be afraid, and the watchers be terrified. Great fear and trembling shall seize even to the ends of the earth. The lofty mountains shall be troubled, and the exalted hills depressed, melting like honeycomb in the flame. The earth shall be immerged, and all things which are in it perish. He shall preserve the elect, and toward them exercise clemency. The whole earth is full of water. This is either history or prophecy. In the second epistle general of Peter, chapter 3, we have some allusions to the past and some prophecies based upon the past, which are very curious. Verse 5, for this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water. That is to say, the earth was, as in Ovid and Ragnarok and the legends generally, an island, standing out of the water and in the water. Verse 6, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. This seems to refer to the island Atlantis, overflowed with water and destroyed as told by Plato, thereby forming a very distinct connection between the island of Poseidon and the deluge of Noah. We read on. Verse 7. But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire, against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. The Gothic mythology tells us that Surt, with his flaming sword, shall come at the end of the world. He shall vanquish all the gods. He shall give up the universe a prey to the flames. This belief in the ultimate destruction of the world and all its inhabitants by fire was found among the American races as well as those of the Old World. The same terror inspired the Sorry, just take a quick break here, scroll up. The same terror inspired the Peruvians at every eclipse. For some day taught the let me just check the pronunciation of that one word there. Go to my assistant. I had it here, but I just need to refresh my memory. Amantas. Huh. I thought I caught that one. Oh yeah, Amantas. Yeah, Amantas. Not Amantas, but Amantas. The same terror inspired the Peruvians at every eclipse. For some day, taught the Amantas, the shadow will veil the sun forever, and land, moon, and stars will be wrapped in a devouring conflagration, to know no regeneration. The Algonquin races believe that someday Mikabo, I wasn't on there. Let me do just a quick check here on that one. That's Mikabo, Mishaboo, The Algonquin. Mishabo. My cat's gonna jump up here. Mishabo. Come on, come here. Come on. Mishabo. Okay, let's try that again. Come on. Oh, she knocked the mouse off the table. I mean, unbelievable. The Algonquin races believe that someday Mishabo will stamp his foot on the ground. Flames will burst forth to consume the habitable land. Only a pair, or only at most those who have maintained inviolate the institutions be ordained. He ordained. Huh. Only a pair, or he ordained. Only a pair, or only at most those who have maintained inviolate the institutions he ordained, will he protect and preserve to inhabit the new world he will then fabricate. Nearly all the American tribes had similar presentiments. Nearly all the American tribes had similar presentiments. The Chickasaws, the Mandans of the Missouri, the Pueblo Indians of New Mexico, the Muzias of Bogota, the Bocuros of Brazil. I checked this one out too. This is Araucanians, the Bocuros of the Botocudos of Brazil, the Araucanians of Chile, the Winnebagos, all have possessed such a belief from time immemorial. The Mayas of Yucatan had a predilection with Father. Get back to that. The Mayas of Yucatan had a predilection which Father Lizana, cure of Itzamal, Itzamal, Itzamal. I had this one too. Itzamal. Itzamal. Funny how I get it, but then when it comes time to reading it live, Itzamal. The Mayas of Yucatan had a predilection which Father Lizana, cure of Itzamal, preserved in the Spanish language. At the close of the ages it hath been decreed, shall perish and vanish each weak god of men, and the world shall be purged with ravening fire. We know that among our own people, the European races, this looking forward to a conflagration which is to end all things is found everywhere, and that everywhere a comet is regarded with terror. It is a messenger of woe and disaster. It is a dreadful threat. I wasn't on that page, so it's hard to click. Okay, here we go. It is a dreadful threat shining in the heavens. It is God's rod, even as it was in Job's day. I could fill pages with the proofs of the truth of this statement. An ancient writer describing the great meteoric shower of the year 1202 says, "The stars flew against one another like a scattering swarm of locusts to the right and the left. This phenomenon lasted until daybreak. People were thrown into consternation and cried to God, the Most High, with confused clamor." 1202. Keep that in mind. I'm going to go back and look at to see what, if anything happened around then, like the fires that we heard of yesterday on this read. The great meteoric display of 1366 produced similar effects. An historian of the time says, "Those who saw it were filled with such great fear and dismay that they were astounded, imagining that they were all dead men and that the end of the world had come. How could such a universal terror have fixed itself in the blood of the race if it had not originated from some great primeval fact? And all this terror is associated with a dragon." And Chambers says, "The dragon appears in the mythical history and legendary poetry of almost every nation as the emblem of the destructive and anarchical principle, as misdirected physical force and untamable animal passions. The dragon proceeds openly to work, running on its feet with expanded wings and head and tail erect, violently and ruthlessly outraging decency and propriety, spouting fire and fury from both mouth and tail, and wasting and devastating the whole land. This fiery monster is the comet, and Milton speaks from the same universal inspiration when he tells us, "A comet burned that fires the length of Ophiuchus huge in the Arctic, in the Arctic, the Arctic, the Arctic. A comet burned that fires the length of Ophiuchus huge in the Arctic sky, and from its horrid hair shakes pestilence and war." And in the Shakespeare's plays we read, "Hung be the heavens with black, yield day to night. Comets importing change of times and states, brandish your crystal tresses in the sky, and with them scourge the bad revolting stars." Man, by an inherited instinct, regards the comet as a great terror and a great foe, and the heart of humanity sits uneasily when one blazes in the sky. Even to the scholar and the scientist, they are a puzzle and a fear. They are erratic, unusual, anarchical, monstrous, something let loose like a tiger of the heavens, athwart an orderly, peaceful, and harmonious world. They may be impalpable and harmless attenuations of gas, or they may be loaded with death and ruin. But in any event, man cannot contemplate them without terror. Chapter 7. The Earth struck by comets many times. If the reader is satisfied from my reasoning and the facts I have adduced that the so-called glacial age really represents a collision of the Earth with one of these wandering luminaries of space, the question cannot but occur to him, was this the first and only occasion during all the thousands of millions of years that our planet has been revolving on its axis and circling around the sun that such a catastrophe has occurred? The answer must be in the negative. We find that all through the rocky record of our globe, the same phenomena which we have learned to recognize as peculiar to the drift age are, at distant intervals, repeated. The long ages of the Paleozoic time passed with few or no disturbances. The movements of the Earth's crust oscillated at a rate not to exceed 1 foot in a century. It was an age of peace. Then came a tremendous convulsion. It has been styled by the geologists the epoch of the Appalachian Revolution. Strata were upraised and flexed into great folds, some of the folds a score or more of miles in span. Deep fissures were opened in the Earth's crust, like the fjords or great rock cracks which accompanied the diluvial or drift age. Rocks were consolidated, and over some parts sandstones and shales were crystallized into gneiss, mica schists and other related rocks, and limestone into architectural and statuary marble. Bituminous coal was turned into anthracite. Better redo that one. Bituminous coal was turned into anthracite. I wouldn't want Randall Carlson to listen to this and tell me I pronounced a bunch of stuff wrong in the geology section. Okay, let me reset here since the cat is off my lap. Okay, let me just redo the whole thing here. Check. Excuse me. There's a section, the section of the Schuylkill, Pennsylvania, Pottsville on the coal measures, Caliciferous Formation, number 2 over here, Trenton, right there, Hudson River, right here, Oneida and Niagara, over here, Lower Helderberg, number 7, right here, 810 Devonian, and then subcarboniferous, number 1213, right here, carboniferous or coal measures. All right, back to the thing here. Let's see. Bituminous. Bituminous. Is it not bituminous? Bituminous. It's not bituminous. Bituminous coal was turned into anthracite in Pennsylvania. I copy from the same work, page 153, the following cut showing the extent to which the rocks were crushed out of shape. These tremendous changes were caused by a pressure of some kind which came from the east, from where the Atlantic Ocean now rolls. It was due to a lateral pressure, the folding having taken place just as it might in paper or cloth under a lateral or pushing movement. It was accompanied by great heat, which melted and consolidated the rocks, changed their condition, drove the volatile gases out of the bituminous coal, and changed it into anthracite in some places, altered it to graphite, as if it had been passed through a furnace. It also made an almost universal slaughter of all forms of life. The extermination of life which took place at this time was one of the most extensive in all geological history. No fossils of the Carboniferous formation occur in later rocks. It was accompanied or followed, as in the Drift Age, by tremendous floods of water. The evaporated seas returned to the earth in wasting storms. The waters commenced the work of denudation, which had been continued to the present time. Is not all this a striking confirmation of my theory? Here we find that long before the age of man, a fearful catastrophe happened to the earth. Its rocks were melted, not merely decomposed as in the Drift Age, but actually melted and metamorphosed. The heat, as in the Drift Age, sucked up the waters of the seas to cast them down again in great floods. It wiped out nearly all the life of the planet, even as the Drift Age exterminated the great mammals. Whatever drift then fell probably melted with the burning rocks. Here are phenomena which no ice sheet, though it were 1,000 miles thick, can explain. Here is heat, not ice, combustion, not cold, and yet all these phenomena are but the results which we have seen would naturally follow the contact of the Earth with a comet. But while, in this particular case, the size of the comet or its more fiery nature melted the surface of the globe and changed the very texture of the solid rocks, we find in the geological record the evidences of repeated visitations when drift was thrown upon the Earth in great quantities. But the heat, as in the last Drift Age, was not great enough to consume all things. In the Cambrian Formation, conglomerates are found, combinations of stones and hardened clay, very much like the true till. In the lower Silurian of the south of Scotland, large blocks and boulders from 1 foot to 5 feet in diameter are found, of gneiss, syenite, granite, etc., none of which belongs to the rocks of that neighborhood. Geeky says possibly these boulders may have come from some ancient Atlantis transported by ice. The conglomerates belonging to the old red sandstone formation in the north of England and in Scotland, we are told, closely resemble a consolidation boulder drift near Victoria in Australia. That sounded weird. Let me take a sip. Check. Near Victoria in Australia, a conglomerate was found nearly 100 feet in thickness. Great beds of conglomerate occur at the bottom of the Carboniferous in various parts of Scotland, which it is difficult to believe are other than ancient morainic debris. They are frequently quite unstratified, and the stones often show that peculiar blunted form which is so characteristic of glacial work. Professor Ramsay found well-scratched and blunted stones in Permian conglomerate. In the north of Scotland, a coarse boulder conglomerate is associated with the Jurassic strata. The Cretaceous formation has yielded great stones and boulders. In the Eocene of Switzerland, erratics have been found, some angular and some rounded. They often attain great size. One measured 105 feet in length, 90 feet in breadth, and 45 feet in height. Some of the blocks consist of a kind of granite not known to occur anywhere in the Alps. Geeky says, the occurrence of the Eocene of huge ice-carried blocks seems incomprehensible when the general character of the Eocene fossils is taken into account, for these have a somewhat tropical aspect. So likewise, the appearance of ice-transported blocks in the Miocene is a sore puzzle, as the fossils embedded in this formation speak to us of tropical and subtropical climates having prevailed in Central Europe. It was precisely during the age when a warm climate prevailed in Spitsbergen and North Greenland that these erratics were dropped down on the plains of Italy. And strange to say, just as we have found the drift deposits of Europe and America unfossiliferous, that is to say, containing no traces of animal or vegetable life, so these strange stone and clay deposits of other and more ancient ages were in like manner unfossiliferous. In the Fleisch of the Eocene of the Alps, few or no fossils have been found. In the conglomerates of Turin, belonging to the Upper Miocene period, not a single organic remain has been found. What conclusion is forced upon us? That, written in the rocky pages of the great volume of the planet, are the records of repeated visitations from the comets which then rushed through the heavens. No trace is left of their destructive powers save the huge unstratified, unfossiliferous deposits of clay and stones and boulders locked away between great layers of sedimentary rocks. Can it be that there wanders through immeasurable space upon an orbit of such size that millions of years are required to complete it some monstrous luminary so vast that when it returns to us, it fills a large part of the orbit, which the Earth describes around the sun, and showers down upon us deluges of debris while it fills the world with flame? Thank you, people in the chats there. I mean, this is the end of the book, so don't really stop and pay attention to the chats. But Sati's been here, and he says, "Here we are, Italy." Yes, interesting that these stones made it all the way to Italy. And thanks, Kelly McConnell. Nice, thanks for doing this. Glad to make it a special moment in digital history. This is an underrated book. Been an amazing read, actually. I'm super happy that I chose this one, especially for the live read, because it's a pretty special book. I'm sure some of it has changed scientifically, but in general, I think is really under underrated for sure. All right, let's see. Where am I? Check, check, check. And are these recurring strata of stones and clay and boulders written upon those widely separated pages of the geological volume the record of its oft and regularly recurring visitations? Who shall say? Science will yet compare minutely the composition of these different conglomerates. No secret can escape discovery when the light of a world's intelligence is brought to bear upon it. And even here we stumble over a still more tremendous fact. It has been supposed that the primeval granite was the molten crust of the original glowing ball of the earth when it first hardened as it cooled. But lo, the microscope, so Professor Winchell tells us, reveals that this very granite, this foundation of all our rocks, this ancient globe crust, is itself made up of sedimentary rocks, which were melted, fused, and run together in some awful conflagration which wiped out all life on the planet. Beyond the granite, then, there were seas and shores, winds and rains, rivers and sediment carried into the waters to form the rocks melted up in this granite. There were countless ages. Possibly there were animals and man, but all melted and consumed together. Was this, too, the result of a comet visitation? Who shall tell the age of this old earth? Who shall count the ebbs and flows of eternity? Who shall say how often this planet has been developed up to the highest forms of life, and how often all this has been obliterated in universal fire? The earth is one great tomb of life. All that tread the globe are but a handful of the tribes. Let me redo that. All that tread the globe are but. Yeah, the first few chapters are very scientific about the drift and the comet and all that, and then it gets into the legends, which is my favorite part, and then the finale here. All that tread the globe are but a handful to the tribes that slumber in its bosom. In endless series, the ages stretch along birth, life, development, destruction, and so shall it be till time is no more. Chapter 8 The Afterword. When that magnificent genius, Francis Bacon, sent forth one of his great works to the world, he wrote this prayer: Thou, O Father, who gavest this visible light as the firstborn of thy creatures, and didst pour into man the intellectual light as the top and consummation of thy workmanship, be pleased to protect and govern this work, which coming from thy goodness returneth to thy glory. We humbly beg that this mind may be steadfastly in us, and that thou, by our hands and the hands of others, on whom thou shalt bestow the same Spirit, wilt please to convey a largesse of new alms to thy family of mankind. And again, he says, this also we beg that human things, This also we beg that human. I'm not sure about that one, Kelly, about he made the meat. He did. This is Ignatius Donnelly's work, and he did do Caesar's Column, which is a very interesting sort of utopian slash dystopian novel. It's in our YouTube channel and on Audible and everything. I think we did the only audio version of it, so it'd be great if you found that one. It's actually got some really good. Um, what do you call that when like somebody does a rant, like a really good solo, or I'm trying to remember the name of the. I can't remember it, but with yeah, a bunch of good speeches, like good sort of political and good speeches and predictions of what the world's going to look like in the year 2000 or thereabouts. All right, okay, let me see where I am here. And again, he says, scroll up. This also we beg, that human things may not prejudice such as are divine, neither that from the unlocking of the gates of sense and the kindling of a greater natural light, anything of incredulity or intellectual night may arise in our minds toward divine mysteries. In the same spirit, but humbly halting, in the same spirit, but humbly halting, this is raw and how we edit it, or how I edit it. In the same spirit, but humbly halting afar after this illustrious man, I should be sorry to permit this book to go out to the world without a word to remove the impression which some who read it, and may believe it, may form that such a vast catastrophe as I have depicted militates against the idea that God rules and cares for his world and his creatures. It will be asked if there is a special providence even in the fall of a sparrow. How could he have permitted such a calamity as this to overtake a beautiful, populous, and perhaps civilized world? Here we fall again upon the great debate of Job, and we may answer in the words which the author of that book puts into the mouth of God himself, when from out the whirlwind he answered him, shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him? He that reproveth God, let him answer. In other words, who and what is man to penetrate the counsels and purposes of the Creator? And who are you, Job? Where vast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare it, if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who has stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Consider, Job, the littleness of man, the greatness of the universe, and what right have you to ask him who made all this the reasons for his actions? And there is a sufficient answer. A creature 70 inches long, prying into the purposes of an awful something whose power ranges so far that blazing suns are seen only as mist specks. But I may make another answer. Although it seems that many times have comets smitten the earth, covering it with debris or causing its rocks to boil and its waters to ascend into the heavens, yet, considering all life as revealed in the fossils, from the first cells unto this day, nothing has perished that was worth preserving. So far as we can judge, after every cataclysm, the world has risen to higher levels of creative development. If I am right, despite these incalculable tons of matter piled on the earth, despite heat and cyclones and darkness and ice and floods, not even a tender tropical plant fit to adorn or sustain man's life was blotted out. Not an animal valuable for domestication was exterminated, and not even the great inventions which man had attained to during the tertiary age were lost. Nothing died but that which stood in the pathway of man's development. The monstrous animals, the Neanderthal races, the half wow, whoa, buddy. The monstrous animal. Wow. The monstrous animals, the Neanderthal races, the half-human creatures intermediate between man and the brute. The great centers of human activity today in Europe and America are upon the drift deposits. The richest soils are compounded of these so-called glacial clays. Doubtless, too, the human brain was forced during the drift age to higher reaches of development under the terrible ordeals of the hour. Surely, then, we can afford to leave God's planets in God's hands. Not a particle of dust is whirled in the funnel of the cyclone, but God identifies it and has marked its path. If we fall again upon axe ages, sword ages, wind ages, murder ages, if sensual sins grow huge, if brothers spoils brother, if sensual if sensual sins grow huge, if brother spoils brother, if Sodom and Gomorrah come again, who can say that God may not bring out of the depths of space a rejuvenating comet? Be assured of one thing: this world tends now to a deification of matter. Dives says, "The earth is firm under my feet. I own my possessions down to the center of the earth and up to the heavens. If fire sweeps away my houses, the insurance company reimburses me. If mobs destroy them, the government pays me. If civil war comes, I can convert them into bonds and move away until the storm is over. If sickness comes, I have the highest skill at my call to fight it back. If death comes, I am again insured, and my estate makes money by the transaction. And if there is another world than this, still am I insured. I have taken out a policy in the blank church and pay my premiums semi-annually to the minister." And Dives has an unexpressed belief that heaven is only a larger Wall Street, where the millionaires occupy the front benches, while those who never had a bank account on earth sing in the choirs. Whoops. That was almost good. And Dives, it's always at the end of the sentence. And Dives has an unexpressed belief that heaven is only a larger Wall Street, where the millionaires occupy the front benches, while those who never had a bank account on earth sing in the chorus. Speak to Dives of lifting up the plane of all under the unfed, underpaid, benighted millions of the earth, his fellow men, to higher levels of comfort and joy and intelligence, not tearing down any but building up all, and Dives cannot understand you. Ah, Dives, consider, if there is no other life than this, the fate of these uncounted millions of your race. What does existence give to them? What do they get out of all this abundant and beautiful world? To look down the vista of such a life as theirs is like gazing into one of the corridors of the catacombs, an alley filled with reeking bones of dead men, while from the cross arches, waiting for the poor man's coming on, ghastly shapes look out. Sickness and want and sin and grim despair and red-eyed suicide. Put yourself in his place, Dives. Look up in such a cavern as that, and the key thrown away. Do not count too much, Dives. On your hands and houses and parchments, your guns and cannon and laws, your insurance companies and your governments. There may be even now one coming from beyond Arcturus or Aldebaran or Comma Berenices. Do I have to check the pronounce Berenices? I'm just going to wing it. There may be even Berenices. Coma Berenices. There may be even now one coming from beyond Arcturus or Aldebaran or Coma Berenices with glowing countenance and horrid hair and millions of tons of debris to overwhelm you and your possessions and your corporations and all the ant-like devices of man in one common ruin. Build a little broader, Dives. Establish spiritual relations. Matter is not everything. You do not deal in certainties. You are but a vitalized speck filled with a fraction of God's delegated intelligence, crawling over an eggshell filled with fire, whirling madly through infinite space, a target for the bombs of a universe. Take your mind off your bricks and mortar and put out your tentacles toward the great spiritual world around you. Open communications with God. You cannot help God. For him who made the Milky Way, you can do nothing. But here are his creatures, not a nerve, muscle, or brain convolution of the humblest of these, but duplicates your own. You excel them simply in the ordination of certain inherited faculties. You excel them simply in the ordination. Let me redo that one here. Where was I? There it is. You excel them simply in the coordination of certain inherited faculties which have given you success. Widen your heart. Put your intellect to work so. Widen your heart. Put your intellect to work to so readjust the values of labor and increase the productivity. Sorry, that is the very end, so I want to get it right. This is like the last two paragraphs. How exciting. It's been like 450 pages almost. Widen your heart. Put your intellect to work to so readjust the values of labor and increase the productive capacity of nature, that plenty and happiness, light and hope may dwell in every heart, and the catacombs be closed forever. And from such a world, God will fend off the comets with his great right arm, and the angels will exult over it in heaven. The end. Wow, there we go. Wow, and it's funny, the last 5 minutes in the chats are people are chatting in there. This has been pretty lonely the whole way through, which is totally fine. Um, yeah, incredible. Thank you. Oh, thanks for the comments there, Kelly and Sati. Appreciate it. Yeah, there's some gems. There's some gems in the library, and glad you like it. It still feels weird to be doing this. Have you heard of the Haunted Major? It's about golf and a woman, but also about quantum mechanics in a way I can think. Check it out and let me know if you'd maybe consider reading it. It's shorter. Yeah, I would read it, but it kind of has to be in the public domain. So if it's about golf and women, it's probably not. But you never know. I'll look it up. Heard of the Haunted Major. I'll check it out. You can always email me at graham@gramerica.com too. Um, and yeah, like and subscribe and all that stuff. Pass it on. Our library is also in at or on Audible and Spotify and all that as well. So if you also check out those platforms, you can check them out there. Anyways, thanks for being here from this experimental read. I don't know if I'll do it again. I might do it again. We have a visual book about ancient America with a bunch of pictures on there. I kind of feel like it'll be good with the books that have pics in there that we can sort of visually see. Then we can take this video later and make something of it with the pics. Yeah, other than that, it was totally experimental, and we wanted to show people that we are people and not just AI here. So there you have it. Thanks for being here. I will stop sharing for the moment. And yeah, hopefully we'll do this again. Maybe I'll start another one this weekend. Otherwise, I'm still working on Walden. I'm almost done Walden in the background here. So thanks, Sati. Your lesson for today is over. Awesome. Love you. See you next time.